Hello everybody, this is AK. I'm back. So it has been quite a while since my last video, right? And this is quite consistent with what I said, right? That I'll be producing fewer videos, reducing the frequency when it comes to content creation. Well, maybe not entirely true because I still share stuff in the community tab of my YouTube channel from time to time. Mostly non-investment related, right? But it might still be something about money. For example, the modular package, which I was surprised that I got some money right from the government for modular package because I thought I would be getting nothing. And of course the assurance package, I was also surprised to get $600 from in an assurance package from the government. But like what a viewer said, AK, you don't really need the money, right? So how do you feel getting the money? Well, and then I replied with a quotation from Lee Kuan Yew, our late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. I say, what's wrong with collecting more money? He really did say that, right? I cannot remember the context, but it had to do with taxes or maybe the COE. I can't remember exactly, right? But I have a list of charities which I support, right, regularly. So I'll just be making more monetary donations next year to those charities. It's quite simple for me, right? Just give away the money if I donate it, right? Especially when this is money from Akong, this from the government, is extra money. So if you have not been following my community tab in the YouTube channel and you want to stay in touch, you might want to do so, right? So you see a little tab on the YouTube or my YouTube page that says community. You just have to click it and you see all the photos that I share there, right? So I'm rather inconsistent, so sometimes there are photos for days, consecutive days, and there will be sometimes when there are a couple of weeks when I don't share anything, right? So that's just me very sporadic, right? So and then there are people who say, oh, you're not sharing as frequently as before and then we're going to miss you. So this video is to address that. Right, if you just want to hear my voice and you just want to know how I've been doing, what I'm up to, right? Yeah, this is one such video. And if you are saying, oh, this is going to be a waste of time, AK is not going to share about stocks and hot tips and stuff like that, I'm going to stop listening. Yes, you should stop listening right now because I'm not going to give any hot tips. I'm not going to do any stock analysis because I'm not supposed to, right? And it could easily be misconstrued as financial advice, even though I just talking to myself. Right, I keep saying I'm just talking to myself and that everyone must do their own due diligence and do their own research and make their own decision based on their own research and not based on what I've said. Right, I'm just sharing my perspective. Right, but still too easily this could be misconstrued and I could be invited by the government to la kopi in their office and I don't want to do that. I don't want that to happen, right? So but I did publish a blog post recently with the title Plans for 2025. Plans for 2025 and am I hoarding cash to prepare for a crash, right? And if you have not read that blog post yet, I'll leave a link in the description box below and you can go and read it on your own. But for those of you who don't really enjoy reading, or some of you absolutely hate reading because you do too much of it at work, or maybe you just don't like to read, basically I reiterated the reasons why I'm going to share less content. I'm going to create less content and do less sharing when it comes to money and financial stuff. And I also shared a video which was by Channel News Asia recently about how financial influencers, local financial influencers, should be licensed or regulated, right? And if you're interested in that video, you can go to that blog post and watch it. But what is more important to share, which I think is also safe to share in that blog post, was I said about how I've not bought any stocks. I've not bought any stocks in 2024, right? Unlike in 2023, I was still adding to my investments in the local banks, right? And the last one was DBS in November 2023, right, at $31.80 per share. And I was also buying UOB at like $26 per share and OCBC at $11.30 or $11.50 per share, right? So anyway, all of us know that the banks have done stunningly well, and the stock prices are very high now. DBS are at $44 and OCBC I think has touched $17, and UOB is at around what, 30, is it? I can't remember, $36? I can't remember, right? So I could be delusional. Right? So, but like I've always said, those are just prices. Those are just prices. We want to look at value, right? Where as investors, we want to look at value. And I kept saying that the banks, the stocks of DBS, OCBC and UOB, they were not overvalued. They were not expensive. I kept saying that for the last, 24 months, right? In fact, more than 24 months, right? But especially in the last 12 months to 18 months, I kept saying that as well. And I said for people who were not invested in the banks yet, it was okay to buy some. It was okay to buy some because I didn't think they were expensive. And I thought that we would be paying fair prices for wonderful businesses. Right, but then of course there were detractors who say, "Oh no, the banks very overvalued, and we're waiting for them to crash, the share prices to crash, and they would be crashing soon." They were making predictions like that, right? So, but I just said no, it's fair price to pay for wonderful business, and if you're not invested yet, buy some. And for those who are substantially invested like me, there's no urgency to add. Right? And so what about now? I think it's harder to say that now because the valuations are now, well, they are not bubble. They are not in the bubble. I don't think it's a bubble territory, right? I still think they are not overvalued, but they are certainly pretty rich, right, when it comes to valuation. And remember in one of my videos I said that look at the 5-year average PE for the financial sector, and that's about 11 times PE, right? And now I think DBS and UOB might be approaching 12 times PE, right? Whereas OCBC is still at about 11 times PE, right? Which is why I think OCBC has got a little bit of push and the share price has touched $17, right? I think there's still a bit of room to go, but certainly I think most of the upside is already done, right? And there is a bit more risk to the downside now, I believe, because if sentiment should just shift a bit into negative territory, we will see prices tumbling. I mean, that's just common sense, right? It's not something fantastic, rocket science or something like that, right? So if you're already substantially invested, I think it's best to err on the side of caution. That's what I think. That's what I tell myself anyway. So I'm not buying, right? And so what have I been doing the entire year? I mean, if you have been following me, you know that I've been adding to my cash position. I've been buying more T-bills and Singapore savings bonds. And I think those are good risk-free, volatility-free instruments to store our money while waiting for opportunities, right? While waiting for opportunities. But I think it would be a big mistake to sell everything and stay out of the market and wait for the next crash, because we don't know when the next crash is coming. I mean, there are people who like to predict what's going to happen, right? When the crash is coming, where the prices are going. But like I've always said, we can't predict, but we can definitely prepare, right? But people are always attracted to predictions, so that's human nature, and because of that, there will be people who will do predictions to cater to these people, right, to get some views and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that, it's just entertainment. It's entertainment industry, right? So I'm just growing my cash position, and it's likely to continue growing in 2025 if prices stay elevated in the stock market. I'm quite likely to simply grow my cash pile, and we're still being paid quite decently for holding cash. I mean, it's still like 3% yield for 6 months T-bills, and of course for the Singapore savings bonds that I bought in the middle of this year, they're paying like 3.2 to 3.3% per annum in 10-year average yield. And seeing how yields for long-term bonds are holding steady, they are not dropping, and in fact, in the US, we see that long-term bond yields are going up because there's some fear when it comes to the debt level in the US and how it's unsustainable. Yeah, so I think it's likely to be a good place to park money for some time to come. Singapore savings bonds should see the 10-year average yield going a bit higher as well. We might just go a bit higher because of what's happened in the US, because we import our interest rates, and also yields are influenced by what's happening in the US. So that's what's happening in 2025, right? Very simple, just holding more cash and waiting for an opportunity to buy stocks when Mr. Market goes into a depression. And it is really when Mr. Market goes into depression. It's not if, it's Mr. Market going into depression at some point. There's so many things that could go wrong in the world, right? And of course, now with Trump taking the presidency in the US, we know there'll be more tariffs to come. He has already promised that. And of course, he also has some very outlandish ideas, like having a Bitcoin national reserve, which has sent Bitcoin above $100,000, $100,000 per coin. I think it seems like it's fast approaching $110,000 per coin. And of course, I own almost a complete Bitcoin, almost a whole Bitcoin. So that investment, some people call it an investment, but I don't call it an investment. I call it insurance. But that investment, in inverted commas, has grown like 3 times in value. So I mean, it's the most unexpected thing, right? So that's why if we would extrapolate that, I say it's very important to stay invested in the stock market, right? Nothing to do with Bitcoin now, but it's just suddenly I go off tangent, right? It's so important to stay invested in the stock market because the cost of being uninvested is simply too high, right? So for people who kept saying that the banks, for example, DBS, OCBC and UOB, were overvalued, right? And they wouldn't touch it with a 5-foot pole, and they're going to wait for the price to crash. Yeah, they've been saying that for like the last 12, 18 or 24 months. They have missed out on so much, right? The dividends and of course the capital appreciation. But my focus is on the dividends, right? Because I invest primarily for income, right? And I'm a retiree. I depend on the dividends for living, right? So we have missed out so much. In terms of capital appreciation, I mean, it's just paper gains. If we don't sell, we don't see the gains in our bank account, right? So the cost of staying on the sidelines is simply too high, right? We should stay invested while we grow a war chest in preparation for when the market go into a depression. I keep telling myself that, and if you're eavesdropping, well, remember, not financial advice. Do your own due diligence. There's more than one way to achieve financial freedom, right? And just find our own way, right? And if AK can talk to himself, so can you. Bye bye.